So, hi, my name is James Fortney. I'm from the University of Southern California. Today, we're here with Alessia Defraia from Loyola University of Chicago and Marianna Gatto, the executive director and co-founder of the Italian American Museum of Los Angeles, as well as a historian and author with nearly 2 decades of experience in museums, nonprofit leadership, advocacy, and education.
Yes, welcome, Marianna. Can you briefly walk us through your studies and preparation that set you up for the position of director of the museum?
Sure. So as an undergrad, I double majored in social science and history and studied history and education in grad school. But it was really my fascination with the largely untold story of Italian Americans in Los Angeles that led me to what has been my career and kind of my vocation for the past 17 years, as well as the focal point of my research. So I am a Los Angeles native. In case anybody out there is wondering, there are indeed Italians in Los Angeles. From the time I was young, I tried to kind of understand my place within the Southern California mosaic as an Italian American. And while the history of Italian Americans in places like New York and Chicago is well known, the history of Italians in Los Angeles wasn't as well documented. And in the early 1990s, I learned about the Italian Hall, a building located on the edge of downtown Los Angeles that had served as a gathering place from the Italian community in the early 1900s up until the mid-century. And discovering this building, it was fascinating. It was the first time I had heard of it, and it truly was kind of like an aha moment for me. There were few mirrors for Italian Americans in Los Angeles, and learning about the Italian Hall confirmed that Italian Americans had a place in Los Angeles historically. It was then that I connected with the group that was trying to restore the building, which had been vacant for decades and really had languished after many years of kind of disuse. Not long after, I visited the building for the first time, and during that time, the building was in pretty sad shape. These are some images of what it looked like prior to the restoration. Nonetheless, you could really feel the building's history and all the stories it contained. And I often say that, it wasn't me, it was really the building that spoke to me. And walking through it the first time, I said to myself, this building really should be a museum, and I'd like to be the director of it. So in 2008, I collaborated with the foundation and a legendary public affairs consultant here in Los Angeles by the name of Joe Sorrell to launch an advocacy campaign that resulted in the allocation of over $1 million in public funds to address some of the most pressing structural issues that had prevented the museum project from moving forward. We also presented at that time an exhibition that examined the history of Italians in Southern California. Anyway, so in 2010, at that time, I was working with the foundation very closely, but I was also an employee of the city of Los Angeles. And I left the city to helm the museum, basically to become the museum's first director. We launched a capital campaign to secure the funds needed to complete the tenant improvements to the building and create our permanent exhibitions. We raised a few more $1 million, and in 2016, we opened our doors as the museum that we are today. So, this is what the building looks like today.
Oh, wow.
And we've kept everything that's original, or that was original, restored a number of the historic features. This is kind of our entry. And now I'll take you upstairs.
So charming.
So this is the permanent
beautiful.
exhibition wing. And I'll show you a few more images. So the screens that you see kind of in the front there are made out of a special kind of glass that transforms from transparent to opaque. And we project an overview of each exhibition onto these screens. So it's kind of a design for maybe the casual visitor who wants to sit down and kind of just get a better sense of what the museum is all about, kind of an overview of Italian Americans in Los Angeles and the nation.
So thank you so much. This is really wonderful. Based on your experiences, what do you suggest to high school and university students regarding their dreams and following through on their goals and aspirations?
Well, for me personally, at an early age, history, specifically Italian American history, was really what ignited a spark within me. I was also very drawn to education, and I realized that these feelings, I think back at looking at images of immigrants arriving at Ellis Island, learning about events, tragedies such as the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, really foreshadowed what would become my career path, what would become, really my vocation and the focus of my research. For many years, there was, doubt as to whether the museum would ever, the museum project would ever reach fruition. But for better or for worse, I stuck with it. And just as serving as, the museum's director has oftentimes been kind of consuming or exhausting, it's also been really rewarding. And there's nothing else that I'd rather do. So I guess that's to say that my advice to young people is to listen to the voices in your head, those passions presenting themselves to you. Not only the voices of self-doubt, which I know can be rather nagging, but the little guides that we all have within us that help us recognize what is true and authentic to ourselves. If being an Italian teacher is what feels right to you, what you're drawn to, find a way to make that happen. The world has a lot of attorneys, many of whom hate their jobs. So, don't pursue law if your passion isn't there, because, that's when work will really feel like work.
So, please tell us about some of your most successful or interesting exhibits and events organized at your museum. Which were the most successful? What do you think?
Okay, so, the IAMLA features an award-winning permanent exhibition, and I think I started to share some images of that. You'll see a few more of them here. The exhibition is accessible both in person and online, and we'll share our website later. We also offer quite a bit of educational programming and tours. Here's the website where you can find our permanent exhibition. We offer curricula for educators and, as I mentioned, guided tours. We also have a temporary exhibition wing. And prior to COVID, we presented two temporary exhibitions each year. They've ranged from topics such as Italian Americans in animation to this one here. You see the Sicilian cart, which kind of used the iconic carretto siciliano as a lens for understanding the multi-layered history of Sicily. We also did an exhibition called Italianità, which showcased a century of work by Italian American artists. And explored themes such as dual identity, memory, folklore, faith, migration. Italian Americans in animation kind of really sums up what is often our approach to these temporary exhibitions. Interestingly enough, only 15% of our visitors are of Italian extraction. And our visitors, range in age from 9 years old or even younger to 90 years old. And so we really kind of reflect upon the diversity of our visitors when we create these exhibitions.
Now tell us about this new exhibit you have on women.
Okay, so our latest exhibition is entitled Woven Lives, Exploring Women's Needlework from the Italian Diaspora. And it opened late last month. And the exhibition examines the significance of needlework in the lives of Italian-American women, their families, and their communities from the mid-19th century to the present. It reconsiders the role of needlework beyond its aesthetic value and utilitarian purposes, recognizing it as an extraordinary medium for expressing and preserving culture. So here are some images of the exhibition. We showcase a variety of handmade textiles created by Italian-American women. Each piece is accompanied by the craftswoman's story. By examining not only their work, but learning a bit about the women's individual experiences, we gain a greater understanding for the perspectives of these various generations of Italian-American women who practiced the craft. And I think the exhibition illustrates how traditions survive and change, disappear and reemerge, not only in the Italian-American community, but in immigrant and transplanted communities of all kinds. So here's one piece from the exhibition, a matrimonial bedspread created by a woman in Italy. She brought this piece with her to the United States.
Wow, beautiful. Okay, as you know, because we already told you, as this issue of AATI's newsletter honors women in academia and women in the community, what sort of insight would you like to share with this audience in mind?
Well, we are a woman-run organization. Our staff is entirely women, and our staff is also a fraction of the size of the staff of similar museums. We have accomplished a number of noteworthy projects, and we have quite a few more in the works. We never really shy away from a challenge, and I think that in and of itself kind of speaks volumes.
Yeah, see, it makes sense. Yes, yes.
And along these same lines, what are your thoughts about the role of institutions like the Italian-American Museum of Los Angeles and the community that it serves?
Well, so, traditionally, museums have played the role of research, preservation, and educational institutions. We're the collectors of cultural artifacts. Museums and archives serve as our collective memory banks, providing future generations a portal to the past. We are a community museum telling Italian-American history from an Italian-American perspective, something that isn't very common. And we also take great pride in telling the history of our nation and our region. Stories that I often feel, especially in this day and age with the TikTok generation, are at risk of extinction. We recognize the museum is also an economic engine, strengthening local businesses through cultural tourism and revitalizing the city's birthplace, revitalizing some of our local landmarks. The Italian Hall, where the museum is located, is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and without the investment from our group, from the foundation behind the museum, and the commitment of the city of Los Angeles that owns a building, the Italian Hall probably would have continued to languish. So, I see museums as really an integral part of our society, preserving our past for future generations, and also, in times like this where there's a lot of chatter and sometimes it doesn't always make sense, sometimes it's not always the most informed, we hopefully serve as kind of that voice in the background, navigating through all of the, some of the less intelligent conversations, and hopefully promote more meaningful discourse in the process.
How can we better connect the work that you do with college and universities here in the States and in Italy to provide more and richer opportunities for our students? How we can?
Well, let's see. So over the past 17 years, we, the museum, have hosted dozens of interns, interns or students, I should say, from all, backgrounds, all fields of study or many fields of study, researchers, documentary filmmakers, and our interns have really played an integral role in, in the museum being where it is and achieving many of its important projects, from cataloging our collection to bringing that collection and making it accessible online. We're just very jazzed. We're proud to say that we've remained in touch with many of these interns over the years, and it's given me a lot of satisfaction to see how they've transformed their studies, their skills, their talents, as well as their experience working with the museum into really, vibrant, fulfilling careers. And whether it's in education, law, museums, or something else. And so we certainly appreciate the assistance that educational institutions, that their host universities, and institutions like the Getty, who have often underwritten a lot of these internships, have provided. And we hope that you'll continue to keep us in mind for future opportunities that enrich, certainly the students and the museum as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.